So, Big Orange here has got a crack problem. You can see she's been rehabbed before. So obviously the proper way of doing this is not that. If you ever have a situation like this on any big piece of equipment, tractor frame, loader, anything, this isn't the way to fix it. What you have to do is it's called fish plating. So you do this, but then you also add metal. You add a plate of metal to gusset sort of the whole area. And that's what I'm going to do. I kind of just did this quickly, just to get me up and running, and then got lazy. So now it's time to pay the piper. Now it's a little easier to see the extent of the crack here. Got it all ground flat, or flattish. And the reason this happens is from side swiping. It's from smacking the boom and the stick into things. These cracks don't usually just happen from regular operation. F is going to be carving a groove into that crack so that you get a little bit deeper penetration with your weld. So this is kind of what you're looking to end up with. You want to be like a third of the way through the metal, and that'll give you a decent amount of strength back into this thing before you fix it properly. If you're using brake clean to clean your parts out before welding, just make sure, please make sure it's non-chlorinated. One place you won't be able to really skimp out on is the size of your welder. You're going to need one that runs off of 240 volts. You won't get away with those dinky 110 volt welders. Not for welding stuff like this. That's like a sheet metal welder. And if you're thinking that thing looks like a piece of crap, well, yeah, it kind of is. I've had this thing for 20 years, maybe even more. Probably one of the original made in China welders. It sticks metal together, and that's good enough. I don't need things to look pretty. I'm not an Instagram welder. I run flux core wire and everything. I just don't mess around with gas. The only real reason to go with gas is to make your welds look prettier. You're gonna get perfectly strong welds with this stuff. And that's why I don't have a cup on it. You don't need it for flux core. The whole point of those cups is these little holes here. If you have gas, it's gonna come out there and the cup directs it down at your weld. But the cup kind of just gets in the way, I find. And if you're running flux core, you don't need it. Okay, the base weld is in there, and one crappy thing about flux core wires, it makes a lot of slag, so I use the grinder with a wire wheel on it to clean it all out. You don't want that stuff staying in there when you go to weld it again. Okay, well, like I say, it's not Instagram welding, but it'll do. I think real welders call this a cap. I'm not a real welder, so call it what you want. Now I gotta paint this, and then it's gonna be time to work on the plates. Well, plates are made up. I could only get 1/4 inch. When I went down to the scrap yard yesterday, they didn't have much of anything for plate steel, so these two pieces were all they had. And so I put those circles in the middle. I don't know if it's going to actually do anything, but I figure 1/4 inch, it's a little flimsy. I was hoping for 3/8, so this way I can kind of mount the centers of them so that they can't, I don't know, buckle, twist. Gives them a little bit more strength. Prepped and ready to weld. One down. Plate number 2 welded on. So hopefully that's the end of this nonsense. Time to paint it up. I want to talk about professionals quickly here, because obviously I'm not one. I have all the respect in the world for guys who do this for a living, who have the skill and the experience and the training. I'm not the kind of guy who's doing this DIY stuff because You know, those guys charge too much. No, they're worth every penny. And believe me, if I had the $1,000+ hanging out of my pocket that I would have taken to hire a guy to do this, I would gladly have done it. So for us guys who just don't have the money and need to get it done, you can see it can be done. It's going to take you a whole day, and you're not going to have nearly as good a job as a pro would do. It is what it is, no disrespect to pros. They're well worth the money they charge, and if you have the money, then you should hire them. And if you don't, well, then you can do hillbilly stuff like me.